Welcome to Sauntering into Silence. I'm Ajahn Jotipālo. So very quickly, I mentioned that I took on this practice for a year of asking forgiveness if I ever did anything that I knew, just even at whatever level, was just coming from aversion. And it was a really powerful practice and there was many different levels to it. And I think I have given a Dhamma talk or two about it at Abhayagiri. It's probably on their website. But when I did this practice initially, when I made that determination, I would get back to my cabin in the afternoon and I'd just have this gut feeling of, oh, I don't feel good. I wonder what I said, what I did. And I'd start thinking about it. I think, yeah, I was probably a little bit too short, or that person asked me a very valid question, and I kind of gave them this, spoke out of aversion to them, just gave them the bare minimum of information. I could have been more generous. And so I would make the determination to go, just explain that to the person that I apologize. But it was always like I would discover it, I'd have to think about it later and remember. But so after doing this and making the determination, then very quickly, probably within at least a couple of weeks or a month, I started being able to catch myself in the moment. Instead of catching it later in the day, I'd find it in the moment as I was speaking. I'd be like, oh, this is coming from aversion. But my mindfulness wasn't strong enough yet, and I would continue with the being rude or whatever, and then still make the determination, okay, when the time is right, I'll ask for forgiveness. Then, after a couple of months, then I started being able to actually stop myself right in the middle of it. I'd be like, starting to say something, and I'd just like, wait, that's not what I want to do. It's kind of a long story, but I did something that wasn't vindictive, but it was just, I saw that it irritated him, so I went and asked for forgiveness, and he started, reacting, and he just stopped and goes, wait, this isn't how I want to be in the world. He didn't say it that way, but he said, wait, this isn't what I want to do. And I think I actually probably started even crying in the moment, because I was like, that is so beautiful. You are really, it's an inspiration to see that when somebody's acting in a way that's not so skillful and then just catches themselves and stops. And it was just like, bang, just running into this wall. It just like changed the whole mood and the atmosphere. And so that showed me that, yeah, you can actually do that. And so for quite a long time, that's what was happening. I'd be in it, this aversion, and I'd just, wait, I don't want to be that way. And eventually, after several months more of doing this, then you start noticing trends. You start noticing, like, there's certain times of the day when maybe you're reversed. Like, all these things would always happen in the morning and they didn't happen in the evening or the afternoon. Everybody's probably different when they have their good time, when their bad time. But I started noticing very specific trends of when that would happen. I also noticed it would only happen with certain people. Other people it wouldn't. I even noticed, like, when these two people are together, I get aversion. It was almost as like, both of them I considered to be really good friends. And then when they were together, like, maybe there was jealousy, like, like, why wasn't I invited to that conversation? And there'd be aversion. And so I started noticing, like, okay, when those two people are together, let's, actually practicing avoiding. So, like, if going into a certain room, a certain place at a certain time is going to cause you aversion, and you don't need to go there, why do that? And so I started noticing people, situations, times that would do it. And so even if you had to be there, then you could set that intention. You could practice, okay, I do have to go into that room. There is the potential that it's going to be painful for me to do that, so go in with the heart of love and kindness. And that really helped. I think the most powerful thing that happened to me was that I was always afraid to ask for forgiveness. There was always this sort of fear that the person was going to listen to me and go, yeah, you were a jerk, and you were also a jerk the day before, and the day before that, and the day before that. But in the entire year that I did this practice, and it may have been because I was living in a monastic community where people are trustworthy and good people, nobody ever did that. Nobody ever took advantage of my making myself vulnerable. And but half of the time, this was blew my mind away. Half of the time when I brought this up to somebody asking for forgiveness, they would listen to me. Half the time they're like, I appreciate you saying that, but I really did not notice any aversion. Thanks for saying it. And then the other half, though, I guess this is what blew my mind away, is that I would tell them like what happened. Like I came into the room and I saw you throw the piece of garbage at the wadded up paper at the garbage can. It didn't go in, and you didn't pick it up, and I sort of snapped at you. And the person would listen to me and go, "That's really significant that you bring this up, because you don't know it, but like 5 minutes before you came into the room, I admonished somebody for doing something almost the exact same thing." And hearing that literally like half of the time, like oh, I just was admonished, or I just admonished somebody else for that same thing. I got it that many times I think what would happen is I would come into a room and there had been an argument or miscommunications, or somebody was feeling bad, and I would come in and I would pick up that emotion, pick up that feeling, and I would think it was me. I'm angry, I'm feeling discomfort. And if you're not mindful, if you're not aware of that, if you don't even know that that is a possibility to exist, you feel angry and you start looking around the room, why am I angry? And then, oh, there's a piece of paper on the floor, so you yell at somebody if you're unskillful. And so that was really, really powerful. So, near the end of this year of doing this, I'd be able to walk into a room and just say, ooh, something happened in here, and just, leave the room, or just, again, practicing okay, I'm not going to be averse. So that even helped even more. I think the most amazing thing, and maybe this is just more about my personality, was that even after a year of asking for forgiveness of anything that I had said or done, that there was always a slight fear of asking for forgiveness, of making yourself vulnerable. Maybe that's just a human trait, but I saw it as a beautiful practice, and I'm not even suggesting that people take that on, because it is vulnerable, makes yourself vulnerable, but it's maybe something to consider. I think bringing the story up just in terms of people all being so close to each other, just to acknowledge that we, especially if you don't have a lot of training living around other people in small, tight quarters in a stressful period of time, there are going to be issues that come up. There are going to be misunderstandings, or we are going to be getting frustrated with each other. Hopefully we have lots of compassion and loving kindness for each other, but the other emotions are a potential. And so finding skillful ways to work on it on yourself. It's like the other person, the other situations, really at a deep level, it's not about them. It's really about what's happening inside our own heart. It's inside our own mind. It's like with this practice of asking for forgiveness, one of the things I like to say about it is that at a really deep level, I don't think I can get upset with somebody for an action unless at some level I'm actually doing something similar in my own life. And I have several examples of this, but one was I was living at an ashram, and every morning I'd go up to this large communal space. It was supposed to be total silence, and I would go up to meditate there, because the meditation room is always really noisy. So I go to this sort of communal space, and this woman would come in after I'd been there for like 10-15 minutes and start doing yoga, and she was breathing really loud, and I was getting really irritated, but I worked with her, and so I didn't want to say anything to her, just because I knew I was coming from aversion. And then I just, for 3 or 4 days, I just would sit and watch this, and what's going on, and all of a sudden I had this realization that my supervisor was asking me to do a particular job, and I didn't want to do it, and so I did it just to the bare minimum so he couldn't get upset with me. But all of a sudden I had this realization that, I was being disrespectful to my boss. It was a very legitimate request and something I could do. And so I just, actually I went and asked forgiveness of him. And he hadn't even noticed, of course. But just that act of, okay, yeah, I can do this better. I'm not doing my best out of aversion. And so just asked forgiveness, started doing it. Well, the very next day, I was sitting in meditation in that room at the same time, and had a very blissful sit, not very common, but had one. And I got up to leave, and my friend was over there doing yoga, and I hadn't even noticed her. So there was something about, and I realized why initially I had been averse for those days was that it was supposed to be a completely quiet room. People were sitting in there meditating, and she was making all this noise doing the yoga, and I just felt like she was being disrespectful. And so, as soon as I stopped being disrespectful to my boss, seeing somebody else doing something that probably was disrespectful didn't bother me. And so that was one of the benefits I think that comes from this practice of learning to ask for forgiveness and being able to point things out to people in ways that are skillful, is that really the practice is about learning about yourself. It's not about changing anybody at all. So I've been rambling here for a while. Hopefully I'll be able to edit this down quite a bit, but I wish everybody well. Continuing to social distance as long as we need to protect those who are vulnerable. Okay, so I hope that I've shared something that can be of value in these difficult times of social isolation, a lot of uncertainty. And so if I've said anything that is of benefit and helpful, I'm really happy, and hope that you're able to use that. If you're not so sure, Ajahn Amra used to always say he had 3 little pigeonholes for information he'd received. One is, that's great information, I'm going to remember that one. One is, not so sure about that one, I won't reject it, but I'm going to put it in this middle slot and maybe it'll come in handy later. And there's some you just wad up and you just throw in the garbage. So hopefully mine fits in this category or that category. So thanks for watching.